The history of colonialism and British protectorates is vast and complex, spanning several centuries and impacting a large portion of the world. Here's a broad overview of British colonialism and the establishment and operation of British protectorates. 1. Early expansion, 16th to 18th century. 1.1 The beginnings of British colonialism. Age of discovery. The British began to establish their global presence in the late 15th and early 16th centuries, following the Age of Discovery. British exploration and trade were driven by the search for new markets, valuable commodities like spices, and territorial expansion. First permanent colonies. Early British colonies were established in North America, e.g., Virginia in 1607, the Caribbean, e.g., Barbados in 1627, and India. The British East India Company started operations in 1600. These colonies were often established for trade purposes, especially through the British East India Company, which began to play a crucial role in India. 1.2 The expansion of empire. By the 18th century, Britain's naval superiority and its ability to dominate trade routes helped it build a global empire. Colonial wars. Britain fought numerous wars, including the 7 Years' War, 1756 to 1763, and the Napoleonic Wars, 1803 to 1815, which resulted in Britain acquiring more colonies, particularly in Africa, the Americas, and Asia. 2. The British Empire at its height, 19th century. 2.1 The Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution, late 18th to 19th century, transformed Britain, fueling the need for raw materials such as cotton, rubber, and gold, and new markets for manufactured goods. This drove Britain to expand its colonial holdings. Imperialism and the scramble for Africa. The late 19th century witnessed the scramble for Africa, where European powers, including Britain, raced to divide Africa into colonies. By the time of World War I, Britain controlled vast areas of Africa, Asia, and the Pacific. 2.2 The British Protectorate System. The British employed several forms of colonial administration, including direct rule, indirect rule, and protectorates. The protectorate system became increasingly popular during this period. Protectorates were a form of indirect rule where Britain would allow local rulers to maintain power while overseeing foreign relations, defense, and other key matters. The goal was to control the territory with minimal investment of British manpower and resources. Protectorates were often established in places where Britain did not wish to take on the full responsibility of colonization. 3. British Protectorates. The British protectorate system was applied in various parts of the world, especially in Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. 3.1 Africa. Egypt, 1882 to 1952. Egypt was technically a British protectorate, but had a large degree of self-rule until it formally became a British colony in the late 19th century. Britain controlled Egypt's government and military, but was more focused on the Suez Canal's strategic importance. Protectorates in East and West Africa. In many parts of Africa, such as Uganda, 1894, Kenya, 1895, Bechuanaland, now Botswana, 1885, and Zanzibar, 1890, Britain established protectorates, where local rulers retained some authority but were ultimately controlled by British officials, particularly in matters of foreign relations and defense. Sudan, 1899 to 1956. Sudan was jointly administered by Britain and Egypt, referred to as the Anglo-Egyptian Sudan. It was a form of indirect rule with Britain exercising considerable influence over local affairs. 3.2 The Middle East. Palestine, 1917 to 1948. After World War I and the fall of the Ottoman Empire, Britain took control of Palestine under a League of Nations mandate. The situation became increasingly complex with the growing tension between Jewish and Arab populations. Iraq, 1920 to 1932. After the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, Britain established a mandate over Iraq, which formally became a kingdom under British influence. Transjordan, 1921 to 1946. Britain established a protectorate over the area that became Transjordan, which gained full independence in 1946. 3.3 Asia. India, 1858 to 1947. India was considered the jewel of the British Empire. While India itself was directly ruled by Britain after 1858, Regions like Nepal, Sikkim, and Bhutan were considered British protectorates. Burma, 1886 to 1948. Burma was annexed by Britain and administered as part of British India before becoming a separate colony.